Good morning. Thank you for joining today. We're waiting just a moment to all the attendees to arrive, and we'll be starting again in about a minute. I think I'll start when my clock shows 2 minutes after the hour. So just stay tuned. We're excited about this event, and we'll see you shortly. Again, welcome. We're just waiting for a few more people to arrive, and we'll be starting once my clock says 2 minutes after the hour. Thank you. All right, good morning. Thank you for joining today. We're waiting. I would like to share a couple of housekeeping items before we get started. You have been connected to the call in listen-only mode and are muted, but we encourage your participation today. There's three ways you can do that. First, participate in the polls. There will be 2 polls presented during the presentation. We'll be asking for your feedback. Please take the polls to help us enrich the conversation. Secondly, ask questions. You'll find a question panel on your screen. Please type in questions for the panel at any time. We will address them at the conclusion of the presentation. We hope to have the last 15 minutes for that. And take the survey. At the end, when you exit GoToWebinar, at the end of the hour, you'll be presented with a short survey. Please take a moment to let us know what you thought and to provide any feedback. Now, let's get started. My name is Rob Graff. I work for the North American Council for Freight Efficiency. NACFE, which we call NACFE, it came out of a seed planted at the Rocky Mountain Institute about 15 years ago with the goal of doubling freight efficiency. We're an unbiased, fuel-agnostic nonprofit. We serve all stakeholders, OEMs, fleets, and suppliers. We provide guidance on available and emerging technologies for freight efficiency, including aerodynamic work, electric vehicles, hydrogen fuel cell vehicles, autonomous vehicles, tire research, lightweighting, all kinds of things. And we also have run-on-less demonstrations, which you may have heard of. You can go to the 2 URLs there, nacfe.org and runonless.com. We have a whole bunch of resources. Everything's available free. We just ask you to give us your name and email address so we can put you on a newsletter. And if you don't like that, you can unsubscribe. But there's a lot of great resources there. We've done some work on TRUs and electric TRUs. There's a report available to download, again, free from nacfe.org, which is the one you see the cover of there. And I also serve on the American Trucking Association's TMC Task Force on Transport Refrigeration Energy Optimization, which is led by Matt Cernak of Thermo King, who we'll be hearing from a little bit later in today's presentation. TRUs are very important, more important, I think, than we realized, at least when we did our report that we released last year. 15% of all trucks are outfitted with TRUs, ranging from florist vans to pharmaceutical vans to forest vans to pharmaceutical trailers to mostly a lot of food trailers. And in many cases, these reefer trucks or trailers are stationary for long periods, either in the yard or at a dock or somewhere where they're stationary. And there's also a lot of reefer trailers used for long-term stationary use, turkeys at Thanksgiving, ice cream in the summer, parked in supermarket lots, and then some are used for very long-term storage. This photograph is an aerial view of the Hunts Point produce market in the Bronx, just north of New York City, and it has 1,600 wet hose reefer trailers operating 24/7, which shows a real opportunity for where you could electrify these and save a lot of fuel and reduce emissions, and frankly, as we'll learn today, save a lot of money. Today's webinar will provide an overview of, we have 4 speakers, and one will be talking about an overview of the current TRU technologies and when diesel, hybrid, electric TRUs make sense, talking about strategies for reefer fleets to manage energy and cost management for that, how incentives like the low carbon fuel standard can add value to a transition to hybrid electric TRUs. and then some real world lessons from a fleet that's already making the transition to diesel electric hybrids. And then we'll have time at the end for Q&A, so please put your questions as they come across. And quickly, I'll introduce our four speakers. We have Matt Cernick, who's a principal engineer of electrification at Thermo King. He'll be talking about TRUs. Manuel Aguirre, Vice President of Fleet Electrification at Ndustrial, will be talking about some of the energy side of this. Gustavo Loss, Vice President of Platform Sales at SRECTrade, will be talking about how you can use low carbon fuel standard credits and other credits for reducing or for supplementing the value of transition to electric TRUs. And then Danny Vehi, who is the U.S. Vice President of Quality and Sustainability at Martin Brower, will be talking about that, how that fleet is experiencing the transition to electric TRUs, or sorry, electric hybrid TRUs. And before we get started on that, give me a moment. I am going to launch a poll asking a question. And let me see. I'm going to give this a moment for you all to answer. Just click yes or no on the question if you currently use shore power in your operations. And when we get a reasonable percentage of people voting, I'll show you the results. Actually, sort of interesting. So let's see. I'm going to give it another 7 seconds, so please jump in. And I see about 40% of you have voted, calling once, calling twice. Okay, and now I will share the results. It looks like about 40% of the people viewing the participants are using shore power already in your operations in some form or other. We'd also, if you want to share some experience of that in the questions, I will, share that as appropriate in the later in the Q&A session. All right, and without further ado, I am going to pass the baton to Matt Cernick of Thermo King. Thanks so much, and I'll be back. Bye.
All right, thanks, Rob. Welcome, everybody, and again, thanks to NACFE and Rob for moderating this valuable discussion. NACFE has been, really good supporter of energy optimization for this industry, trucking in general, and being able to communicate specifics around transport refrigeration that typically get missed, or sometimes get missed in the overall conversation about fuel and energy within our space. So I'm Matt Cernick. I'm a principal engineer here at Thermo King. I'm in my 14th year at Thermo King. And among other projects that I've worked on, supporting our infrastructure definitions and customers' energy assessments is part of my job here. We really look at shore power specifically and electrification in general as we move forward with looking to really provide significant returns on validated returns on customer investments for grid power and hybrid operation connectivity. Next slide. So Thermo King, just a little bit of familiarization here. We originated transport refrigeration, engine-driven transport refrigeration in 1938. Prior to that, ice was cut out of lakes, stored in boxcars or in trailers, and air was blown over it, and that's how you cooled your cargo. We continue to provide cutting-edge technologies today, solutions for customers in all different areas of temperature-controlled freight, and also for solutions in driver comfort and passenger comfort in other markets. So the transition from all diesel operation to electrified and hybrid systems has really been going on here for, depending on how you define it, since the 60s, and definitely within the last 20 years or so. Next slide. And again, lots of different markets, lots of different product segments here, going from truck, trailer, and we'll talk mostly about trailer today, but rail, air, marine, truck, even APU all have components within them or the product in total that are moving towards more electrified solutions, new technologies, new componentry, and improved efficiency overall. And then digital and services, as we'll get into here, really provide the value confirmation of a lot of these operational efficiency improvements. Next slide, please. A little familiarization. So we're going to, again, be talking mostly about trailer today because that's where most of the shore power transition is, and this is where we're seeing the most uptick in fleet adoption of hybrid diesel utilization today. Thermo K's put close to 250,000 or over 250,000 total of our precedent units into the field. That's our main trailer platform here. We've got 12+ years in CARB ULITRU compliance units for California operation or for fleets operating in and out of California. Single and multi-temp flexibility, single temp for single cargo type situations, and multi-temp for distribution, fresh frozen combination trailers in serving different markets. The shore power or hybrid electric architecture, truthfully, has been available all the way back into the early 60s, where we launched our NWD 50 model. And really, we didn't call it hybrid back then. I'm not sure anybody knew what hybrid meant, but the ability to operate off the grid is really nothing new for the transport refrigeration space. It's a challenging transition, and it was then, and it is still now in some aspects. But today, I think there's similar to the learnings that have come along with EV electrification, the need for partnerships and kind of putting a team together to vision the value of this solution. It's not just, hey, save diesel, plug it in, which is, it's a good large part of it, but overall, I think the value statement is bigger than that. And I think the team assembled today can help show a little bit of that. Next slide. Oh, I think go the other way. There we go. So again, just a quick statement of shore power benefits. There's ROI here, right? There's investment, but there's return on that investment. There's usually people just do some back of the napkin math here. $1.50 an hour savings, $2.50 an hour savings, depending on how much you're paying for diesel. Depends how much you pay for electric. There's lots of different calculators out there. We're not going to get into the specific savings today in any specific use case, but there's fuel savings is the targeted area, but that's not necessarily always the best driver for managing or initiating this transition within fleets. You can also lower engine hours, extend maintenance intervals, and really measuring with telematics is a key to making these solutions happen. Next slide. I won't cover a lot of here. I think we'll have some of these slides available, but really all comes down to making sure your connection that you order for your equipment meets what your facility has, or if it's a third-party facility, what those third-party facilities have for connections. This pin and sleeve inlet, the IEC standard 60309, while it is an industrial standard, it's not a standard for transport refrigeration. There really isn't a required standard. But this pin and sleeve connection, represents the most recent and engineered solution for mobile equipment connections, and has a lot of advantages over waterproofing, disconnection, and connection safety, and other aspects that really make it superior to the old twist lock style. Twist locks really are a legacy type of connection system, not necessarily recommended for new installations. And as far as voltage goes, 480 volts, three-phase, 30 amp circuits are the most common. Again, your location may vary. There may be different voltages. There are systems available either natively or through electrical infrastructure adaptation to make those work. Next slide. Again, the connection equipment today is much more purpose-built than it was in the past. In the past, you'd have either a knife switch or a basic disconnect similar to what's seen on the left side of your screen. But today, there's a specific segment in the National Electric Code for electrified parking spaces that defines this TRU connection equipment. It can be nationally recognized lab listed. So an ETL, CSA, TUV, UL type listed equipment, and it's purpose built for this application. You want to make sure that it has the right connector on it, the proper cord, and it has the proper features in it to create the best reliable connection for your equipment. Do want to state though that no matter what equipment that you have, mating and unmating of these the inlets to the cord from the shore power equipment really need to have you know, it needs to have the power off during that transition. So don't unplug stuff while it's on. That's my message for today. Next one, please. Again, lots going on here, but it helps to show the proportional separation between energy use in many cases for these transport refrigerated operations. On the left-hand side at the warehouse is where the majority of the kilowatt hours are consumed. Whether or not you look at kilowatt hours as a kind of a diesel equivalent or just a measure of energy that you can look at proportionally, the pre-cooling stage, which consumes the most or the highest kilowatt load, and this staging and waiting for the driver to pick up the trailer and go on the delivery route, that will consume the most energy in this delivery cycle. So most of that is available to be connected to the grid. Once it leaves, obviously, it has to run on diesel, but in the future, those systems could be running on batteries that have been also charged behind the fence. So go ahead, next slide. Again, some work practice here in energy use ranges, lots of information here, but again, it goes through the understanding of pre-cooling loading and stage loads. These are some of the things that we can help with as customers look to adopt shore power or transition to hybrid operation. Thermo King can be part of this discussion. We can come on site with you, we can do a site walk, we can go through analysis, and through our data, we can be able to take the telemetry maybe that you're reporting on diesel today and help you convert that into kilowatt hours or energy consumption information that you can share with your utility. Next slide. Again, connectivity and analytics through Thermo King's tracking system. That's our telematics. You might have a different telematics system. The visibility of some of this data may vary. Ultimately, if you can see diesel and electric proportions, if you can see your utilization for shore power as you adopt it, if you can't measure it, you can't change it, you can't improve it, right? That's an engineering mantra. So here, the tracking system, the telematics can help you improve it. Next slide. And again, we can look at different metrics in different ways. This visibility of performance is really important for fleets. And next slide. RP 185, I'm going to leave you with this, is kind of it's an RP recommended practice developed by TMC for shore power. There's lots of information here. It's available to all TMC members. We just completed an update on this, and I'd highly recommend that fleets either that are operating with shore power today or looking in the future reference this document for more information. Next slide. That's it. Thanks. Rob, back to you.
Great, thanks. We're going to now just move to our next presenter. Go ahead, Manuel.
Hey everyone, and thanks Rob for the opportunity. Thanks NACFE. I'm a big fan of the work you guys are doing and increasing the efficiency in the trucking industry. Yeah, as Matt provided a great overview of the TRU technologies, I'm gonna basically provide the other side of it, which is the infrastructure side and the energy side. How do you make sure that you take advantage of those fuel savings, those energy savings, cost savings, emissions reductions? But I'm Manuel Aguirre. I'm the VP of Supply Chain Electrification at Ndustrial. I've been with Ndustrial for the last 2 years. Before that, I spent 15 years at Volvo Trucks in a number of different roles, most recently in their charging and infrastructure solutions division at Volvo Energy, looking at the charging of the electric heavy-duty trucks. Next slide. And I don't know how many of you know about Ndustrial. We're a Raleigh, North Carolina based company. We have the largest energy management platform solution for the cold storage. So basically our platform combines data from a number of different sources, including energy that we collect through our own IoT devices, utility data, weather data, data from the user's own operations, for example, warehouse management data or production data, and we combine all those sources to create new insights that allow company to reduce energy consumption, to understand their energy as it relates to their own production. So we generate new metrics such as the amount of kilowatt hours that go into a pallet of frozen food, or the amount of cooling power needed to do those operations that Matt was referring to on the trailers. And Ndustrial has been heavily focused on the cold chain for the last 10 years. We started looking at the facility energy management, working with large customers such as Lineage Logistics, Americold, Emergent Cold, all the operators of the refrigerated warehouse. And from there, basically, we almost stumbled into the ETRU market or segment, noticing how many of these traders are running their diesel engines side by side and the avoidable emissions and costs that are generated in the process. So next slide. So just to put some context to the problem, there's 500,000 TRUs roughly operating in the US. Most of them are running on diesel most of the time, regardless of whether they're moving on the road or stationary at a facility, burning roughly 1 billion gallons of diesel every year, generating 11 million tons of CO2. So that's a lot of waste if you look at from our perspective, and we feel that there's a better solution. So next slide. So a better solution is possible. One more. So with the electric, if you take these reefer trailers that are hybrid and you run them on electric, as Matt mentioned, there's a lot of different benefits at those facilities where these trailers sit. The air quality is not good for those employees, so improving the labor retention. It's a noisy environment as well. I don't know how many of you have walked through a cold storage facility, but the noise of those diesel engines running one next to the other is deafening. Diesel costs, as I mentioned earlier, carbon emissions, so a lot of opportunity to reduce this and realize those savings. Next slide. And this one, yes. So this is a case study of a customer of ours operating a facility in California. They have a large site run by a single customer, roughly 23,000 loads per year. Because we have all this rich data from the operation, we are able to really dig deep in where the biggest opportunity lies, whether it's the yard area where these trailers sit, or is it at the dock, how long they sit there. So we did some analysis working with this customer to understand the opportunity. Each trailer is on average sitting there for 7 hours. So that means a lot of diesel burning, a lot of emissions being generated. And even after accounting for all the cost of deployment in a no capex way, so installing the infrastructure with financing and so on, the savings are immediate in the order of $150,000 per year just at this facility, and cutting their carbon emissions by 2/3. Next slide. not all the loads are the same, right? Then you cannot realize the savings that you don't measure. So that's where software and data analytics become really important, right? If you don't plug in these traders, the most basic problem, right, that we see at the facilities is they have the infrastructure, they have the traders, and they don't get plugged in. So how do you use technology to improve and basically realize the savings and opportunities that ETRU can generate? Next slide. So as I mentioned, the first one and most important one is driving utilization, right? Understanding where those traders are being routed, because not all the traders are equipped with ETRU in a facility, and not all the yard locations are have their chargers if you want to have an efficient deployment. So matching those ETRU traders with the ETRU parking lots is fundamental, is paramount. And then once it's routed to the right location, then measuring whether they're getting plugged in or not, for how long, and how does that compare with the total time at the facility, becomes a key driver of realizing those savings. Again, if you can have the infrastructure, you can have the traders, but if they don't get plugged in, you're not going to realize the savings. Next slide. The next part is understanding the energy side and the cost of that energy in particular. Energy has different costs throughout the day. Those rate schedule change depending on where the facility is located, what time of the year it's at. So understanding utility rates and being able to plan and manage operations according to them is very important as well. As Matt mentioned, pre-cooling the trailers is an energy intensive operation, much more than maintaining the temperature. So being able to do those things when the cost of electricity is lower, it's very important. The other piece is getting ahead of demand charges or coincident peaks it's important to understand when those are happening and being able to control and shift loads as those operations get underway. So that's this slide about demand responses, understanding total load. The other beautiful thing about this hybrid traders is that they are the perfect curtailable load in the grid. If you look at them as a whole, as a load that gets connected to the grid, when the grid is under stress, utilities have programs around demand response that they would pay the user to unplug and reduce the loads from the grid. So then, because these units have their diesel engine as a backup power, you can always turn them on and flip them back, and then leverage those programs to get a higher return on investment and actually get paid by the utilities for doing so. Next slide. Gustavo will go deeper into the carbon credits, but obviously measuring energy, measuring emissions is very important for sustainability programs, and then wherever they are available, generating the carbon credits also help companies have another way of monetizing this solution. Next slide. And combining the data from other data streams and gaining deep insights on the cost of energy is also something that becomes valuable as you roll out this infrastructure. I got one more, Rob. Next slide. Oh, this one's repeated. Go to the next one, please. This one, yeah. So when it comes to deploying the infrastructure, it's CapEx becomes an issue, right? So there's different ways to deploy this, both in fleets on sites, but also in third-party locations. Some of them are managed service. Basically, you can deploy this infrastructure as a service, and then that involves no CapEx up front, and then basically the infrastructure pays for itself as you use it and you start saving, as long as the utilization is high and you are able to measure and track that the traders are being plugged in. So I think we're out of time here, but yeah, looking forward to great questions and discussions later.
Great, thanks so much. We'll go directly to Gustavo.
Okay, thank you, Rob. Glad to be here, and thank you to NACFE and our partners for the opportunity. So can you go to the next slide, please? Okay, so my name is Gustavo Loss. I'm a vice president of sales at Expansive, and one of the divisions I oversee is SRECTrade. That's the focus of the discussion today. At SRECTrade, we help organizations to benefit from regulatory programs like LCFS. It's going to be one of the focus of the discussion today. We are a pretty large player on that industry of managing this type of regulatory program. We've paid more than $1 billion to entities generating revenue through these programs. And you can see we have some big names that are either investors or customers benefit from our services. Next slide, please. So talking about clean fuel programs or clean fuel standards, I mean, we may spend lots of time discussing all the nuances, but in a nutshell, if you operate clean transport assets in certain jurisdictions, it's we are able to enroll you on clean transportation programs, and then we generate clean transportation credits, and there is a market for these credits because there are some players like the oil and gas companies in that case that they are mandated by law to buy those credits. So that's a very summarized explanation of the progress, but in summary, if you operate this type of asset, clean transportation could be electric vehicles, electric trucks, electric vans, electric forklifts, and of course, electric TRUs, we are able to help you generate revenue. So the next slide, please, Rob, is a poll, right? We will just launch a poll to understand how much the audience is already involved with those programs. So yeah, so as you can see, that's the question. Are you currently enrolled in the LCFS or other clean fuel programs? So let's just wait a few minutes to see the response. Seconds, I mean.
I'm going to keep this open for another 5-6 seconds, and then I'll show the results.
Okay, so 35% enrolled, so good to know. I mean, so part of the audience, you're already benefiting, so we know it's real. I mean, we're talking about real revenue, and 65% no. I mean, good news in terms of the opportunity. So literally, there is a potential for you to be making, generating revenue and offsetting part of the costs on the transition. Very good. So next slide, please, Rob. Still on the clean fuel program subject, only certain jurisdictions have active programs today. You see that the dark blue states on the West Coast. So California, Oregon, Washington, they have active programs today. Canada as a country has a program. British Columbia has another one, a provincial one. New Mexico just approved a program, is gonna kick off next year. And you see some states in light blue in the Midwest and the East Coast. Discussions are happening there in order to implement similar programs, but it may be still a couple of years until we really see something happening there. Next slide, please. So now it's more details on really how can you benefit from these programs if you're operating TRUs, electric TRUs, or even hybrid. The main point is you need to be able to meter the amount of power being dispensed to the batteries. So that's key because we need to submit that to the regulators to generate the clean fuel credits. And that's the main positive change that happened recently, because in California, before, the rule is such that you need to provide the metering, and typically in our experience, we see that this is available at the facility level, or the entity operating the yard has this information. But the rights to the credits themselves goes to the owner of the TRU unit. And it's very often, those are two different entities, the one that owns the asset and the entity that is charging or have access to charging data. So this created a challenge. So it was not very easy to report TRUs in the program until recently. But now they changed it. Good news. They've listened to the market, to people like us and other players in the industry. And now the rule is the LCFS credit goes to the charger facility, which is, again, the entity best positioned to provide the charging data. So this is very good news, make it easier for us to help you benefit from the program. Oregon, Washington, it's still under the old rule, so we are in discussions with them to try to change that. Canada, for now, one step behind. They are not even, ETRUs are not even an eligible asset. We are also having active discussions to change that. Next slide, please. Just to provide a couple of real-life examples. Although it was hard to report in the past, it was possible, and I'm just bringing two real examples that we have. One, it's a large company, large marine terminal operator in the coast of California. They have more than 200 assets, and we paid them actually through LCFS proceeds more than $300,000 over the last year. Another example, much smaller entity, a food service distribution company in the Central Valley of California, just 6 assets. Still, we are generating real money, $4,000 per quarter, helps them with electricity bills. Anyway, it's a very valuable program. And a comment to make here, metering is required. So even if you don't have metering capability, back of the envelope calculations, with this scale of revenue, you may pay back your investment in 6 months or less. Next slide, please. Then, okay. So I'm just giving an example on what the easiest way to benefit from that. SRECTrade can bring the expertise and the management of those programs. I mean, we do actually everything that needs to be done to enroll your assets, report, generate the credits, and pay you. And Ndustrial, that just presented, they can help you with the metering, for instance. So if you work with those two companies, it's pretty hands-off because we'll get the data from Ndustrial. We will be the face with the regulator, and you will receive payments every quarter. So anyway, that's the presentation from my side. Glad to answer any questions now or later. So I think now we will hand over to Danny, right?
Great. Thank you, Gustavo. All right. Continue to the next slide, Rob. Thanks. Let me introduce myself. I'm Danny Fahey. I lead quality and sustainability for us here at Martin Brower in the US. So we're going to be able to talk a little bit from a different angle of shore power and ETRUs, more from the commercial fleet user space, right? So next slide. Who is Martin Brower? For those of you that don't know, we're a global leader in supply chain solutions. If you think to the most famous brands in quick service restaurants, we're one of their largest distributor partners. For example, McDonald's, both here in the US and around the world. We handle 730 million cases a year, service 26,000 locations, have 80 facilities. So we are a large player in multi-temp supply chain solutions. Next slide. And through this partnership and with our customers and everything, we are one of the early adopters of science-based targets. We've actually had public science-based targets since about 2018, and they've been revised as the science develops a few times since then. Our current ambitions are net zero by 2050, and by 2030, we want a 50% reduction in our operational emissions and a 30% reduction in our scope 3 supplier emissions. So with this being a public goal and a core strategy of our business, this drives a lot of our behavior, a lot of our investments, and a lot of our focus. Next. So as we approach our science-based targets and our carbon ambitions, we have a core strategy. And the underlying thread to this is what I call double green, meaning we want to come up with solutions to obviously make the environment better, reduce our carbon footprint, but we have to do it in a business responsible, economically viable way. So it's got to be green for the environment and green for the pocketbook, right? One of our focuses is alternative fuels. Here in the US, we have over 3 million gallons of biofuels used annually. At this point, our entire West Coast has switched to RD99. And we are continually looking to expand renewable diesel and other biodiesels wherever viable, right? In parallel to that, we have a large PPA that we led for the system, and it has offset or covered 100% of our electrical usage in the US. So all of our facilities are covered by 100% renewable electricity, which really goes into play as we look at how we're actually leveraging technologies. So there's routing technologies, there's aerodynamics, there's modern fleets, battery electric vehicles, and eventually fuel cells, hopefully. And another technology that we're spending a lot of time with is our trailers and shore power, or hybrid ETRU, as you hear some folks call it, right? And eventually full ETRUs. Utilizing this technology, as we'll go through here in a second, helps us save fuel, right? Saving costs, saves the carbon associated with it. And because we're using renewable electricity, even the electricity is clean, right? So there's no carbon emissions associated with that either. Next slide. So we've been transitioning and trying to expand our usage of this technology quite a bit. Several challenges that we've run into with our fleets over time. The first one was standardizing equipment, understanding that over the years, maybe we've had fleet trailers delivered with different plugs and different infrastructure. So standardizing that and upgrading that infrastructure to be in the yard. At one point, we were putting these along the dock, which is great, meaning we can use it for the short amount of time we're actually loading or unloading a trailer. But there's more time spent stabilizing temperatures and stuff in the yard. And so putting plugs in the yard was a big opportunity. Changing driver habits, right? And overcoming past experiences with some of these older broken plugs and stuff, just changing that human dynamic so that we would get the usage and utilization that we hoped. And depending on the building and the facility, what demand is going on, sometimes this became a utility project as much as a fleet project, which unfortunately leads to delays as far as getting large electrical equipment like switch gears and such can take longer. So we've been working through that at several of our DCs. We think at this point we've identified the best equipment for our needs and have rolled that out and standardized that across our fleets. When we do roll this out at a new DC, we utilize lean kaizens and those types of Lean Six Sigma approaches to engage our drivers and help develop and change those behaviors. Develop custom training so that everyone involved with this knows how it works, where the challenges are, how to troubleshoot certain things. And here more recently, you heard some other speakers here mention that leadership oversight and that metric tracking have really developed in the last year or two, where now you can actually see and understand how much we're gaining from this type of technology, whereas before you didn't always have that visibility. So all of this has come into play to make this a very viable option across our fleet. Next. So what have we started to see? I mean, we talked about it a little bit here. Currently, our benefits that we're seeing are cost savings. When we run on shore power, when we have these trailers plugged in, as you can see in the picture, you have a yard with just rows of these plugs. We're saving the fuel. We're also reducing our preventive maintenance jobs, the frequency needed because the combustion motors in these are not running as much, as well as hopefully extending the warranty and the life of the units, we believe, because again, these units, the combustion components of them are not running as long. They should last longer. Carbon footprint, we talked about less fuel usage. We're saving about a gallon of fuel every hour we have these plugged in per trailer. So that really starts to scale and add up. And of course, we're running this on 100% renewable electricity, so we're completely winning on that front as well. Going forward, as we get more experience with this, as we install more of this and have additional capacity, it's something that we might be able to potentially leverage with supplier trailers and drop trailers that we have in our business. It could become a way to have some further cost savings with those supplier partnerships, or even potentially generate some small amount of revenue while we have equipment in our yards and going through our facilities. So a lot of benefits now, and even more potentially being looked at or considered in the future. So with that, I think we're going to open it back up to the audience here to answer any questions that we might have. Rob, back to you.
Great, thanks so much, Danny. I just sort of as a aside, I just got a note from Mike Roeth, our executive director, that he was walking. He's listening to this while he's walking down the street, and he just passed by a Martin Brower truck. So you guys are everywhere.
Happy to hear it.
Okay, so if everybody could come back on camera, we've got some questions. Please feel free to ask questions in the chat or in the questions box, and I will work with those, as well as some questions I've gotten from in advance and some questions I wrote down. First of all, I want to thank all the panelists for keeping on time. As you both all know, from I was nervous about everyone keeping on time, and I really appreciate that. That allows us enough time for questions. So I have the first one here. Let me just read it. I'm a freight planner for a state DOT. It has been really insightful to listen in and hear where the industry is at and focused on. Do any of the panelists have thoughts as to what role they can suggest state DOTs can play, if any, in helping encourage the switch to hybrid electric DRUs? So I guess any of you can start that. So feel free to join. I guess I'll ask Matt to start with that.
Sure. So yeah, thank you. That's awesome. It's great to hear the engagement at the state level. We've seen corridor planning happen for commercial EV and freight EV as well, right? What's been neglected, again, in this almost, getting near to 60-year span of transport refrigeration hybrid being available, is a lack of connectivity at places where trucks stop overnight. So, if states can work on, as they add parking spaces, as they look at what corridor planning looks like within their state, within their region, is consider transport refrigeration and those connections that are pretty basic to start, but could be expanded to support battery-powered trailers in the future. And with some of these tools we talked about today, being able to look at carbon credits, some revenue generation, to be able to meter that and do some billing, there's ways to make those connections pay for themselves, I think, fairly quickly. We either with not necessarily with a state operator, but definitely with with some private operators. So as you have those discussions with the folks building and putting these sites in place, talk about transport refrigeration, and we can definitely help with some energy estimates. My mantra is every 50 trailers should be planned for about 1 megawatt of energy. So
great, thanks so much, Matt. Any other of the panelists have something to add to what Matt said?
I can address from the clean fuel program point of view. You know that this type of, in order to approve such a program, it's a long and complex process that involves a number of different stakeholders. But definitely DOTs are an important stakeholder, right? In terms of, let's say, if you are in a state that already has such a program, then help sending that message on, let's make it easier for the entities to report and to actually benefit from the programs. And if you are in a jurisdiction where there is no such a program, of course, there are a number of stakeholders from the industry pushing for that, but I think the DOTs are an important one to be part of that discussion and encourage / push, right, to accelerate the expansion of clean fuel programs and the inclusion of ETRUs on these programs and making it easier to report TRUs. So that's my comment.
Great. Anyone else? I think I'll move to the next question, actually. So, key question that I know all of us have faced, and I think this is mostly Manuel would be able to answer this, which is how do you manage how do you manage the fuel saving benefits when the facility pays for the electricity and the carrier pays for fuel? You talk a little bit about how you work with facilities to do that, Manuel, and also Danny, or if you have any insights into that at Martin Brower.
Yeah, so thanks for the question. And this is indeed one of the key challenges that we've seen that has hindered adoption. As Matt said, right, the TRU technologies and shore power has been around since the 60s, but it hasn't really taken off in spite of having positive ROI and so on. One way that we've devised around this, because we're working already with so many of these cold storage facilities where the traders sit, is basically a program that aligns incentives on both of those players, right? So it's an agreement with the site facility host where the infrastructure is in place, and an agreement with the users. So usually these users or these fleets supporting each facility are the same fleets going over and over. So installing this, we call it energy as a service type model, in which an entity can meter and measure the energy consumption per session, per user, and then basically make that data and energy attribution to the fleet using the power, and therefore then the fleet that is saving on the fuel is benefiting from the shore power infrastructure, and then the facility owner is getting a part of it. It's similar to what some of the charging companies are doing in third-party retailers and so on, but at a larger scale.
Great. So this can be done without the facility having to bill the carrier for electricity. Is that correct?
That's correct. It would be a third party that owns the infrastructure and manages that, and then bills and then the facility owner, then they have an agreement to share on those revenues. This also allows facilities to deploy this infrastructure without committing any of their own capital, which usually they have for other purposes.
Great, thank you. And Danny, do you use other, does Martin Brower use other facilities' shore power, or do you allow other TRUs to use your shore power? And if so, how does that work? And if not, we'll just move on.
Yeah, not typically too much. Usually we have our own fleet at our own facilities in today's world. So we haven't run into this yet, although this is one of the opportunities we're looking going forward, and either doing what Manuel says, set up a third party to kind of help manage that, or working through our partners with suppliers and our inbound teams to have some debits and credits based off of how much electricity we can meter for them. So, yep.
Great. And then just while I'm talking to you, Danny, another question is, when I think about, and I've heard people say this, that boy, shore power in a yard, man, everything's going to get, you got to run over the plugs, you got to knock over equipment. Truck yards are pretty brutal spaces for any infrastructure. Can you talk a little bit about that as a challenge for Martin Brower, and then other challenges about adopting shore power for your reefers?
Yeah, for sure. It's something you have to take into account as we're revitalizing some of these systems and installing them new at facilities. We're having to, put some protective barriers around them, ballards and those kinds of things, so that they're not destroyed by backing into them or anything along those lines. And with the wires, there's retractable cords and those kinds of things that keep the cords elevated and off the ground, that you have to think through. Similar tools as what you have maybe with battery electric vehicles, if you have any of those in your fleet, or if you're looking at those kinds of solutions. It's very, very similar in the challenges you run into and such. But it is something that you want to think through, so that when you do spend all this time and effort to implement and train, they're not destroyed within a week. So you have to set this up.
Great. And then we have another question from those listening in. Would the benefits, including generating carbon credits for shore power, also apply to shore power for electric gensets for international ocean containers? Has anyone had experience with that or can talk about how that works?
You mean I think the question will refer the plugs that are on the ships themselves on the transportation, probably. If this is the case, the answer is no, because typically it's only going to affect the plugs that are, let's say, on the shore side of things. Maybe people use the term onshore power also for something slightly different, which is the
let me clarify the questions. The question just clarified the question about using shore power for gensets that are used when the containers are on the shore, either on the because sometimes they're either stationary on the shore at the port.
So yes, definitely. So any plugs based, let's say in California, for instance, they would be eligible, and all the energy dispensed to it you are used, regardless if it's at the port, at the warehouse, whatever, they would be eligible to generate credits.
Excellent. Thank you.
There was actually an article about some of this with ships and the ports using shore power by CBC maybe 2 weeks ago, October 8th. So if anyone wants to learn more about it, they can check out that article and take it from there.
If you'd be kind enough to enter that in the chat to the entire audience, that'd be great. The next question I have, I know Matt will be champing at the bit to answer this one. Are you aware of any initiatives to standardize the electrical connectors?
So yeah, and this is a difficult one to get our hands around, especially for shore power. Typically, if you have a mixed fleet, all the way from small vans to large truck and trailer, they all take different energy requirements. So for your van, say with one of our small truck systems on it, you don't need 3-phase 480 volts to do that. So you could get by with a single phase connection, and different breakdowns of energy delivery require different connections within the within the way that the plugs are broken down. So it'd be nice to standardize, and typically we say if you're running class 6, 7, 8 truck with our large truck systems or trailer, you could look at using just the single 30 amp pin and sleeve connector. The RP185 helps to break that down a little bit into sites and preferences, but there is no standard. The hope to get to that probably progresses towards as we move to battery powered trailer, right? And fixing on a DC and an AC charging standard instead of this wide variety of AC connections.
Excellent. And I noticed that timing is perfect. We've answered all the questions and it's 11:59. So I just want to thank all of the participants for joining. And I also want to really thank Matt, Manuel, Gustavo, and Danny for their presentations. They were excellent. We all hope anyone joining us found the webinar informative and valuable. When I close this session in a few minutes, you'll be presented with a short survey. Please use that to let us know what you thought and provide any feedback. If you have any additional questions, don't hesitate to reach out to any of us. And again, thank you for joining, and we look forward to continuing to engage with you at NACFE events and elsewhere. Have a great day and enjoy the upcoming weekend. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rob.
All right. Thanks, Rob. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.